and welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for tuning in. This week we're going to be going over the Taurus TX-22 competition. This is a semi-automatic striker-fired 22 long rifle handgun made by Taurus USA. So this is manufactured by Taurus. It's manufactured, I believe, in Georgia. And this is one of 3 iterations of Taurus's TX-22. Aside from the normal TX-22, you have the compact and the competition. And what you see on the screen at this time is directly from Taurus's website, so you could pause or go back and look at all of the specs. It shows you weight, length, all of that good stuff you're looking for. So the differences from this and the standard TX-22 are that this comes with an optic-ready plate affixed to the barrel, a longer barrel by about 1 inch, and that barrel is threaded and ready for a suppressor. So what are you going to get when you get this gun? Well, you're actually going to get a pretty nice hard case with it. It's got foam on the inside. It's cut for the internals, the gun itself, as well as the magazines. I'll go ahead and discard my receipts here. The first thing you end up getting, or it shows here, is this like coupon for a Viridian laser. I don't really care about that. You also get the Taurus TX-22 manual, and this thing is actually a really good manual. Plenty of pictures to show you kind of what the instructions are saying, along with parts diagrams, warranty information. This is a good little manual here. I detest manufacturers that give you crappy manuals. Again, a reminder to activate your warranty. I recommend you do that with all of your stuff. And Taurus always gives you an offer to join the NRA, which I would not do because it's pretty clear they're not fighting for our rights, as they should be. Go join FPC or GOA instead. So this comes with 3 16-round magazines, which I greatly appreciate. It comes with the magazine loader, or the speed loader, or whatever you want to call it, that you really don't need. And it also comes with one of these plates that will help you install whatever optic you decide to put on this gun. This gun is compatible with many optics, and the manual will show you how to do that. So that plate you're actually going to need depending on what optic you put on this gun. I really like this case. It's a nice hard case. The foam inside is very soft. This is great. I think that Taurus knocked it out of the park with giving you a really good case, besides just giving you a gun. And again, like I said, you're going to get 3 16-round magazines, or the state compliant, I believe, is 10 round magazines. This is a striker-fired 22 long rifle handgun, as opposed to something like the P322 from SIG, which was a hammer-fired 22 handgun. So I really like the laser stippling they have on here. It's actually really comfortable. This pistol grip is extremely comfortable. You can get nice and high on it. It's got a good palm swell to it as well. You have front and rear serrations. You have an ambidextrous safety. All good things I really like. You also have the optic plate that is directly affixed to the barrel. It will accommodate all kinds of optics, such as RMR pattern, delta point pattern, vortex venom, all that good stuff. Just go ahead and read the specs for that. You also have an adjustable rear sight and a fixed front sight. If I'm not incorrect, I believe these are also Glock compatible, or if that was only the original TX-22. This has really nice ergonomics to it. There's actually some cutouts along the frame that allow you to put your thumb and your fingers on the side. My current gun has a X300 from Surefire attached to it, as well as a GoTar A20 red dot sight that I'm still currently testing. So as far as the trigger goes, it's very Glock-esque. It's got that rubber band feel, but it is very crisp when it comes to the trigger braking. However, there is a lot of take-up. The reset is extremely short. You barely let your finger off it, it will reset. And it's a very positive, nice click. I will say, though, the trigger, you see there's a ton of take-up there, and it's plasticky, and it wobbles a little bit. So I'm not a big fan of the cheapness feeling of the trigger. So like I said, this also has a threaded barrel that is 1/2 by 28 pattern threads. This is ready for a suppressor. So in this video, you will see me affix my Kinetic Suppressor's Mojo 22 suppressor. So I was able to test this gun unsuppressed and suppressed as well. So overall, this gun is actually pretty nice feeling. It's very light because obviously a lot of it is plastic. However, it's very solid feeling. It doesn't feel super cheap. It's built pretty well, except the trigger. I'm not a fan of the trigger at all. I'll probably replace it in the future, which one of the good things about this handgun is it does appear that there actually are, a decent amount of aftermarket parts and support for it. So I went out in the desert and I did an initial sight-in. All of my accuracy testing was performed on bags at 25 yards, and I was utilizing the red dot on the lowest brightness setting so that I could see my target. I utilized multiple different kinds of ammunition, from Winchester Wildcat, CCI AR Tactical 22, Norma Tac 22, Norma Tac 22 subs, Aguila ammunition, as well as Norma Eco Speed. So as far as accuracy goes, accuracy depends on a lot of things. Depends on the shooter, depends on the conditions out, and the individual gun as well. Certain guns will like certain ammo better. So these are the ones that I tested. I have some footage here, and the first one I tested was the CCI AR Tactical 40 grain ammunition, and this is actually pretty good. I got about, unsuppressed, I got about a 2-inch group. I believe it was 2.1 inches. And for those that have watched my P322 video, I apologize if I ever mix it up and say 2.1 MOA. That means it would be 2 inches at 100 yards, not at 25. So in this case, it's a 2.1 inch group at 25 yards. So again, I went on with the next ammunition being Norma 40 grain TAC-22. I've found this ammunition pretty much everywhere. Bass Pro Shops as well as Sportsman's Warehouse. This stuff is always there. The same goes for the AR 22. I find that at Bass Pro all the time. So I tend to shoot ammunition and test ammunition that you can readily find. Of course, there might be more loads that are way more accurate or way less accurate. So accuracy again is subjective. The Winchester Wildcat ammunition was terrible. I got about a 5.7 inch group at 25 yards, and the Norma EcoSpeed also gave me about a 4.5 inch group. So that really wasn't very good. The AR 22 and the Norma TAC-22 gave me pretty much the same results with 2-inch groups. Now, suppressed, I tried again. The Norma gave me about a 3-inch group, the Norma EcoSpeed, and then I repeated it, got about a 3.3-inch group. Then I used the Norma TAC-22 subs with a suppressor, and I got about an inch group each time. And so this gun is definitely capable of being very accurate. About an inch group at 25 yards for a 22 is great. Now, reliability. This is the rocky part. So at first, this gun would not cycle the Norma EcoSpeed 24 grain ammunition at all. It just wouldn't. Every single shot I had to cycle. These were the first few shots with this ammunition. It was pretty rocky. Now, that all being said, all the ammunition did not perform like this. In fact, the EcoSpeed ammunition was 100% reliable with the suppressor. Later on in my testing, the Norma EcoSpeed actually became reliable unsuppressed, so I'm not really sure what that was about. But again, this is why you test things for yourself. You test the ammunition. Don't just buy whatever you find off the shelf. Like, buy a couple different kinds of ammunition and test it. So Winchester Wildcat, this stuff is super cheap. It can be found everywhere in bulk boxes, but my goodness, this ammunition was not accurate and it was super unreliable. I jammed all the time with this ammunition, whether it was suppressed or unsuppressed. This was the least reliable ammunition that I have that I had tested through this gun. It was a rough time, and I was getting pretty frustrated with it, but at the same time, I expected it because it was super duper cheap ammunition, and Winchester ammunition, in my experience, just even like their center fire stuff for like 308 whatnot, that stuff is just, I've never found it to be good. Their brass is rough. It's just never been reliable. Their velocities have always seemed to be inconsistent. I'm just not a fan of Winchester ammunition. So anyway, I would pass on this ammunition. Definitely not going to fault the gun for this type of ammunition. It's just, this stuff's not reliable. However, there were some times I was able to get through an entire mag without a jam. But again, it's just moving on to a different type of ammo. So ask anyone that shoots a lot of 22 long rifle and they'll tell you that CCI is the gold standard when it comes to rimfire ammunition. And I would agree that CCI happens to be very high quality. The AR tactical ammunition cycles very well through the P322 from SIG, as well as my Ruger 1022. And it actually cycled pretty well through this gun. It just so happens that the footage that I've included, I believe was the only footage I had of me testing reliability with this type of ammunition. So, of course, it's jamming up a lot in this video. However, this ammunition was pretty reliable. I'd say that maybe out of 100 rounds, I'd have maybe 3 or 4 that were duds and would fire or would jam up. Norma TAC-22, 40 grain ammunition. This stuff is awesome. I find it everywhere at every Sportsman's Warehouse I go to. And this stuff is accurate and very reliable, very consistent. Good ejection from it. I really like this stuff. So I also tried shooting 10 rounds through each magazine rather than filling it up all the way to 16 rounds or downloading it by 1 to 15 rounds. I find that in my testing, the gun actually cycled a lot more reliably when I only had 10 rounds in each magazine. And I'm not sure why that is. So I believe there actually might be something to the magazines not being 100% reliable. And here's a video of the Norma EcoSpeed actually being reliable, unsuppressed. So yeah, there's that. So getting into the suppressed side. So not a lot of people have suppressors. However, more people are getting them. And that's something I'm really glad to see as far as the culture shift in the gun community. So I wanted to test it because this was a feature of this gun, is it was suppressor ready. And adding a suppressor actually increased the reliability of all of the rounds, except for the Winchester Wildcat. That stuff continued to jam up and just be completely unreliable. But even the CCI stuff, that was pretty reliable as it was. It made the gun shoot a lot more reliably, and I pretty much only shoot this gun with a suppressor on anyway, because that's actually why I got it. I wanted to have just a 22 that was suppressed just for fun to go shoot squirrels with, or just plink around when I was bored for cheap. So getting into the weakest part about this gun are definitely going to be the magazines. This is one thing that actually really irritates me about the new 22 handguns that have been coming out, is I feel like the magazines are an afterthought by these manufacturers. So one thing that I found happened quite a bit was sometimes you would fill up the magazine to capacity to 16 rounds and you would fire the first round, but then the second round would somehow dive down into the magazine, and it would not come up to be caught by the feed ramp and into the chamber. And so this gun, it had some issues with, and it didn't happen all the time, but when I had an issue like this, it pretty much took me out of the fight. And again, I would never use this gun for self-defense just because I don't trust 22 as a reliable round. But with that being said, these magazines, I feel like if you are not careful and you load them incorrectly, it's very easy to have the rim of the cartridge on top behind the rim of the cartridge beneath it, which can cause a jam. It won't load into the chamber. And then on top of that, for some reason, I'm not sure how it would happen, but again, the cartridges would just dive down into the magazine and wouldn't even want to be picked up by the slide and onto the feed ramp and into the chamber. And so I found that this was actually quite frustrating to deal with. And so when I loaded the mags with 10 rounds instead of 16 rounds or 15 rounds, this happened a lot less. And so there's probably something to these magazines that need to be redesigned. And they are plastic. They are durable if you drop them. Like, they're not going to break, but I don't foresee these lasting very long, especially with them being the kind of cheap plastic that they are. Now, I'm sure this aids in the cost, keeping costs down, but again, if the magazine doesn't function properly, then the whole handgun's not going to function. So again, when you're loading these, I've seen some people that pull the follower all the way to the bottom and then just start dumping bullets in, kind of like an airsoft gun. Don't do that, right? Like, very carefully load each round, one on top of the other, making sure that the rim on the top round is not going to get caught on the rim on the bottom round. And I've got some people in the comments that have always been like, oh, well, if I have to try that hard to load the magazine, then I don't want this gun. Well, guess what? That's just how this works with 22. Another thing, sometimes, actually most of the time, 99% of the time, the slide would not lock back on an empty gun. And this became kind of frustrating, especially when performing reload drills, is my gun would go click and I'd have to manually pull the slide back and verify that the gun was empty before I loaded another magazine in. Only 2 or 3 times did the slide actually lock back. And I tested each and every mag to see if I had faulty mags and different ammunition, different amounts of ammunition in the mags to test and see if it would lock back, and no dice. I never figured it out. It just decides if it's going to or if it's not. So when these issues are not happening, this gun is a super fun gun to shoot. It's accurate, it's low recoil, it's cheap, it's just a lot of fun. And that's the whole reason that I bought this gun in the first place. I wanted a handgun that was cheap to shoot and that I could throw a suppressor on and give it to my friends, being adults, or even young teenagers that could just shoot this gun and have a blast with it. See, in these videos, I'm showing an outing that we had from our local church, right, with adults as well as 14-year-old boys shooting it and just having a blast. And some of these people were first-time shooters and really enjoyed starting out on something as simple as a 22, but also didn't have really any noise coming from it because it was suppressed. So this gun has fulfilled my needs. So as far as the pros go, this is an affordable gun, right? It's around $500, $550, but I'm sure you could find it cheaper depending on where you go and if you look for deals. It's accurate, right? This is a pretty accurate 22 handgun. The ergonomics are great. It is very comfortable to hold and to shoot for long periods of time, right? It's a great suppressor host. This thing is actually fairly reliable with the suppressor on it. And it comes ready for many different red dot sights. I've only tested the RMR pattern on here, but if you had a different type, you could throw it on as long as it's compatible. And I think that's a great feature that they included. Cons. The magazines, right? I feel like they're cheap and they could do a better job with them, right? Do something to increase reliability with the magazines feeding. There's a lot of play in the trigger, right? It's a little wobbly and I'm not a big fan of that. And it feels cheap. The reliability it's just kind of on 22. 22 long rifle is not known to be a very reliable caliber as far as feeding or cycling. And the slide rarely locks back. That's something that I'm going to harp on right there. Slide lock is an essential function of a semi-automatic handgun. I had someone in one of my videos, I think it was a P365 video, but one of the issues with that gun is it's so small, sometimes your hands can override the slide stop and anyway, cause the slide not to lock back. Someone was like, oh, well, if it doesn't lock back, just use cover, doesn't matter. Dude, no. If the gun is not functioning, that is a part of the essential function. If you go to any armorer's class, they will tell you that the slide should be locking back. And if it's not locking back on an empty gun, there's an issue. So I don't know if this is an issue with my gun in particular or just with the model entirely. But that was one of the worst excuses I've ever heard. Oh, well, just use cover, doesn't matter. Just cycle it and get going again. If you have cover, you're fine. I was in the police academy. Okay, well, I was in the police academy too, and they even told me if that happens, something's wrong with your gun. And quite frankly, you shouldn't need something like the police academy to tell you that. So anyways, so should you get this gun? If you want something fun to plink with and small game hunting like squirrels and rabbits and stuff like that, this is a great option. I think that with the right load, it's accurate enough to do that job. And this is a great thing to take out to go shoot for new shooters as well. And then just to shoot on the cheap. This is a great option. It's a super fun gun to shoot, especially suppressed. If you want a good suppressor host, this is the gun. I think this one does really well. I actually haven't had the chance to test the P322 from SIG out with the suppressors, so hopefully I can do that in the future. Of course, some of the drawbacks, 22 firearms generally struggle with reliability, and that's due to multiple factors, including usually 22 ammunition is very dirty and it's not reliable. Ammunition is all made per manufacturer to different specs, and some better than others. If you've ever bought the Remington bucket of bullets, you will see that a good, probably half of the bullets in there, the bullet itself spins around in the case, or sometimes is wobbling and it appears that it's falling out of the casing. That's a problem, right? So other factors include things like magazine design. You guys saw the mags in this. I'm not a big fan of them. They're made out of cheap plastic. I don't think they're gonna break from impact or dropping, but anyway, there's a lot of factors that go into it. And this is not a gun that I would choose for self-defense. Not that 22 can't be effective. Like on patrol, I have witnessed people, bad guys too, get shot with 22 and the bullets do crazy things. They'll go into your lung and sometimes come out the top of your shoulder, right? Like the round can definitely do it. However, the reliability historically, it's just not there, right? This is a round that's not always going to feed reliably through your gun. And in a life or death situation, you don't want that bullet to jam up and cause your gun to get stuck where you have to manually clear that malfunction or get a screwdriver out to pop it out of the chamber or to fix the magazine. In the end, any gun is better than no gun. So remember that, right? But for defense of life and property, get the most reliable gun that you can, and this definitely isn't it. Now, this, again, can be subjective. I know some people that have this same gun that claim and scream that it is the most reliable 22 they've ever had. I also know a couple other people that have this gun, like personally know these people, that say that this is the worst 22 they've ever had, where they said they had parts breaking, that this thing jammed up all the time. I never had any of those issues. I've shot probably more than 2,000 rounds of 22 through this in such a short time. And I mean, it seems to be pretty reliable for what it is. But again, do more research, guys. Watch more reviews than just mine. What I say is not the end all be all. And I've never said that, never will say it. I do my own research. I watch other people's videos. I go on forums. And eventually I made the decision to buy this because it actually looked like it would fill all my needs as far as the 22 handgun that I wanted for plinking and small game hunting, everything like that. So all in all, I think this is actually a pretty good gun for what it is. It has its limitations. It's a 22. Don't expect this thing to be perfect, right? And it is pretty cheap, so again, don't expect it to be perfect. but it's exceeded my expectations and what I thought I would get out of it, especially for a product from Taurus, which Taurus doesn't exactly have the best reputation. But this one has always been revered as one of the better ones, and I'd probably agree to that. So that's the review. Again, everything I say is not doctrine. Go and do your own research and compare other reviews, and then make the best informed decision for yourself. We've got more content coming out very soon. Thank you so much for tuning in.